We live in a field of change, continuous transformation. That is the field of the relative. And the relative field of life never is anything the same at any moment. You might look at a stone and say, well, this stone has been like this for millions of years. Yes, it has maintained a certain shape, but if you look at the details of it, even within a year, even within a month, a week, an hour, a second, this stone will never be the same. Even as you go deeper into it, the electrons are moving, the molecules are shaking. So the field of the relative in life is a field of continuous transformation. The laws of thermodynamics tell us that nothing gets ever lost. Nothing gets ever completely destroyed. It's a field of submergence and emergence. What looks like destruction is nothing but going into the field of pure existence and rising again as a new reality. That is the reality even seen by modern physics in terms of thermodynamics. Change is the reality of the relative. This infinite change and continuous change that is never ending is maintained in proper order and balance by the field of non-change, the one reality which is an absolute reality of pure being, pure existence, the unified field of natural law, which is absolute and non-changing. Yet, from that field of non-change, all the changes are orchestrated, they are arranged, they are adapted, they are adjusted, they are harmonized in the infinite order that creates this multiplicity of the universe that we know. These two realities, changing and non-changing, are actually one and the same, only seen from different angles. Because the absolute field of pure being, which contains all the laws of nature as mentioned in physics, is a field that has all the order already within it. And when it expresses itself according to its own nature, according to its own laws. So whatever we see in the universe is nothing but the image of the unmanifest pure being. So the whole universe is nothing but an expression of the reality of pure existence in a physical form. And we can say, as His Holiness Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says and explains to us beautifully, that actually this creation is where the universe is seeing itself, that the pure being is experiencing itself through the expressions of this universe. But when we look at the life of people, we see these transformations, changes, sometimes difficulties, problems, etc. And we wonder what is going on. And we would like to know what makes things change as they do and get transformed as they get transformed. In a physical field of life, we want to transform something. You can do some chemistry on it, put some molecules together, they know how they react together, and it's changed. If you want to change the color of something, you paint it, and it becomes a new thing. So on the gross level, it is possible to act on the elements of life and change them. Of course, in physics, they have gone to great level of transformation where they create new atoms and new molecules by bombarding them like they do in these big accelerators, and they create new elements actually that even mutate and go in a fast way, or some of them live longer. This is some of the radioactive material. But the field of change happens at all levels of life. We can change our home and the decoration, that's very easy. It's a surface level of change. We can change the color of something, it's also easy, but it takes some more doing. You can change the shape of something, but then it's also getting more difficult here, depending on the structure, if it is something that is elastic, or it's something that is rigid. If it's a glass, you want to change it, it's much more complicated, but it's still possible. You can heat it, you can do something, you can try things to do and change them. Now these basic constituents of the material aspects of life, the atoms, the molecules, are realities that have their own number of electrons and the number of nuclei, and they arrange themselves in a very hard structure. They are quite difficult actually to manipulate, some of them, and then they really maintain their original structure over billions of years throughout the time. Even in the heat of the sun, inside the sun, this huge heat, of course some molecules are created, some atoms are created, they emerge and they transform themselves, but basically the basic protons and electrons and basic structures of this universe are quite solid within them. This is how we got this chemical table of what was called the elements table of Mendeleev, etc. And each one of these elements quite strong within itself. Some of them it's easy to transform. You take an oxygen atom, you put on it some proton, and it becomes water. You say, I have changed it a little bit. Or you can split the oxygen molecule into two, and then you get an oxygen atom. You can do this. Or you can bombard even the oxygen itself and do something to its basic nucleus and maybe change its elemental structure. Now, in this field of change and transformation, we have all this range of huge possibilities, some seeming easy and some more difficult. The main field of transformation is based on the use of natural law. His Holiness Maharishi Mahesh Yogi has explained in great detail how the laws of nature emerge and submerge and emerge and submerge in that evolutionary field of life that creates the existence of life that we know, where we are changing, we are evolving, and that is the purpose of existing, enjoying more and more fullness and more bliss, and experience greater and greater happiness and joy and growth and evolution until we realize our own reality to be that infinite pure being and experience the true unity of life, which is beyond any change. And then we are merged with that absolute infinity. We are one with totality. That oneness of reality on the level of consciousness is not only a consciousness transformation process, because consciousness basically is itself pure being. It's also a transformation that happens on the physical level of our body. On the physical level of our physical existence, the body actually gets purified and purified. And as we know, our body is already an exact replica of all the laws of nature. All laws of nature that construct the entire universe are present within our own physiology. And truly, we are already a perfect individual. Only stresses, strains, imprints, bad education, improper experiences in life has made us live a reality which is less than what our true nature is. But as change is going on, since change can happen in this direction, it can be reverted in the other direction, and with the programs that Maharishi has given us, Transcendental Meditation, TM-Siddhi program, we are able to purify our physiology and bring it back to its essential nature, which is the cosmic nature, which allows us to actually act from that field of pure being, and then, as Maharishi says, be the master of change. And Maharishi says, the master of all possibilities. Whatever you can do, whatever you want to do, you can achieve, you can change. From where this change is happening, the power of change? From the field of pure being, from the field of natural law. But today's discussion about transformation and change brings us to a field of reality where one wants to demonstrate that capacity to change things on a physical level. If you say you can do anything, now why don't you take this metal and make it out of gold? Change it, it becomes oxidizing, it is pure, it is shining, it's beautiful, matter that is gold. And we all know there has been traditions throughout the world, the tradition of alchemy, where this has been a great focus. And of course, the alchemists modern in time will tell you that it's also a spiritual practice, etc. But we wanted to explore the reality of that ability to transform and what are the requirements that are needed to be able to do this, and see if this has ever been achieved, how has it been achieved, what did they do even on the physical level. And here it's very important not to say to disregard even the physical action, because the physical reality, as we said, is nothing but the expression of the pure absolute pure being. So if we deal with the physical world as being also a pure reality, a reality of greater value, not something that is less important, then acting and putting things together and allowing things to react together and be transformed is also an action which is on a very pure level, a transformation that can even change the reality of life. In fact, supposing we can recreate that alchemy possibility and create this metal that can be so pure and so strong, it will give so much wealth to the world that we can eliminate all the poverty that is present in the whole world. And that is a very beautiful spiritual action also. We should not shy from it, because nobody wants to suffer, nobody wants to struggle, nobody wants poverty, nobody wants disease, nobody wants problems. And if there is a lack of potential on a physical level, also that can create these difficulties. So in Maharshi's program to eliminate poverty from the world, we have many economic programs and many projects that are going on, particularly in Africa and different parts of the world. And now we have had a very special occasion and a very great pleasure and honor to have, and great privilege to have with us experts from the world that are dealing with that very special field of transformation on the field of the material level. To my right is Professor Pierre Lori from the Sorbonne, which is one of the most ancient, most important universities in France, and particularly I could say in Europe and even in the world. And Professor Lori's focus has been on Sufism and also on alchemy, the golden time and the golden age of the Sufi Muslim period, which has started that research into the alchemy, the field of transformation, and the transformation of actual material object from one reality to the other. And Professor Lori has written many theses and many books and has lectured all over the world. He's received by many eminent people, and he's considered one of the great scholars, researchers, and professors and knowers of reality in that field of alchemy. And we will have a great pleasure to discuss with him and freely think with him about what he has seen, what he has written in his books. Actually, we hope he could even summarize to us his books on this occasion of meeting him, and what techniques he has seen and how it is progressing and where is it going. A number of wealth of things we would like to hear from him, and also from Dr. Luis Saliba, who is sitting on my left, who is also a great scholar and researcher, is working in the Sorbonne and in the university in Lebanon in the field of Sufism. He has publications and books in the field of Sufism and poetry and ancient knowledge, and he's been working under the direction of Professor Lori and working with him to really also uncover all these fields of reality to make the world a better world that we can all enjoy and all live in. So we welcome you. We are really on the same level of our understanding and our desire, and that Maharshi's message has been a message of creating perfection in life, and you have been also searching for that, and today we are meeting here to discuss this very specialized but very interesting field. So I might start by asking Professor Lori to define to us alchemy in a broad sense, and what they say they have achieved, and what does alchemy do, and how is it progressing?
Well, a first definition of alchemy would be transformation of matter. The origins of alchemy are Egyptian, and in old Egypt there were people who tried to proceed an evolution of the raw matter of earth. Chem in Egyptian means the black, dark earth, onto gold. The basic thought is that the minerals are living. Life is present in the whole world, not only within animals or vegetables, but also in minerals, and that all the metals, for instance, are evaluating. They begin with lead, and then they became other metals, and finally they all became gold. But of course, it takes a lot, millions of years, and the ambition of alchemy is to make an evolution, to dispel an evolution of these metals, but within several months only. So it is an artificial way to...
This is a beautiful point, actually. The fact that the alchemist looks at metal as being something that is evolving.
Always.
This is true, of course, we know. I mean, elemental elements, they meet together, they get transformed, they transform and transform. But in alchemy, we see that all the metals come ultimately to gold when they evolve.
Yes.
So the metal is therefore seen as a living reality.
And totally living, there is a spirit in metal.
Uh-huh.
Like in the whole cosmos, there is a spirit in activity. And the purpose of the alchemical work in the laboratory is to perceive the spirit and to make it work on a more efficient way.
Uh-huh. So this brings a real nice, interesting analogy, because you can say metals take millions of years to evolve, and human beings take millions of years to evolve to really reach that state of enlightenment. But here is very interesting analogy between Maharishi Zish's teaching, where he says that the evolution doesn't have to be millions of years. And therefore, even within a lifetime, within one's own lifetime, one can be enlightened. And actually he has shown this in his teaching of Maharishi's Transcendental Meditation program, where actually going back to the self and transcending, one arrives in the physiology all that is needed to experience that unity consciousness. And therefore he has made evolution, which is millions of years and difficult and complicated, which also has been the case in the field of physical evolution, mental evolution, spiritual evolution. People have always thought, oh, it's a lifetime of struggle. Now it's a lifetime of enjoying growth and evolution in a short time. So we can say, in other words, that the alchemists want to do the same thing for the metals. So they must have a technique for the metal. We know the technique for us is transcendental meditation, but the metal probably could not practice transcendental meditation. So we would want to see what is that technique to make that evolution happen fast.
Well, that is for the material alchemy. It is following. When you try to distillate a matter, just you produce four substances, and they say they isolate water and earth and fire and air, and they purify both each one of the four elements. And after purifying each element, they are unifying the two and two elements, and then they call this a wedding between all the elements, purified elements, and this is producing a pure matter called a philosophical stone. And this philosophical stone is able to being thrown into lead, and lead becomes gold.
So the purified stone itself is not the gold. The original purified stone.
No, it is a catalyst.
It's a catalyst.
Yes, it is a catalyst.
It's a catalyst. Okay. Now that's interesting. How they do it? Like, let's say, take what metal we can take, lead
Mhm.
or any other metal. How one does this separation into the four elements?
They don't take lead, they take earth,
Earth.
black earth.
Black earth.
Some-
Any special earth, like silicon, or do we know today what kind of material? it
No,
is?
well, they don't say it. It is a secret. It is a secret.
Ah.
They are using symbols of
Symbols.
yes, for a special matter, the first matter.
They call it.
Yes.
But so those alchemists who are practicing even today, do they tell you, or they know what is that secret? Who knows that secret?
Well, all the alchemists say they know the secret, but well, it remains a secret. I never saw with my own eyes what they were producing.
Uh-huh. But even the original black matter, we don't know what that is.
No, they say it is black. They say it is wet. But they just call it with.
Maybe it's
symbols.
mud, is black and wet.
Maybe.
It could be.
Yeah. With a symbol that you can have gold, find gold within the mud.
Uh-huh. So then there is an original matter, and that matter, original matter, has to be purified
Yes.
and has to be separated into four elements.
Yes.
How do you separate it?
Distillation. So with the distillations. So
Distillation mean you boil it and
yes,
then
yes. And at the beginning, you have vapor.
Uh-huh. Vapor.
Vapor, and that is the first air, and then you have a second vapor, and it is water,
Uh-huh.
and then you have a red element who can be combustible.
Yeah.
That is fire. And what is left
Is the earth.
Is the earth.
So they take this black matter,
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Yes.
We'll find out.
I think it is turba. It is a kind of a coal.
Turba.
Turba.
That's an Arabic word, turba.
In
In French also la terre, turab.
Yeah,
turab.
A kind of rough coal.
Rough coal. Okay. So that's good. We know some of the secrets. You just told us a secret, Professor Lori.
Just an idea.
It's an idea. Okay. This turba is rough coal.
Mhm.
And then they can now actually they put water, or how they heat it.
No, so just put it in the in an apparatus. So الانبيق الألنبيك
Yeah.
Olympics, and then the heat. But the heat
Yeah,
very
okay.
softly. There you have. If you heat too on a too harsh way, then the spirit will go out.
And the spirit will go out. This is very interesting. So then heat means agni, the fire is needed.
The fire.
That fire of transformation.
Everything of the secret is in the fire.
The secret is in the fire also. Very interesting.
So,
It means how strong the fire is.
yes, but they don't give many details, so you have.
So at each step there is a secret. So why is that secret element?
Well, they say that if anybody could find the philosophical stone, the secret would be wasted, and evil, wicked people would take the secret and would produce all kind of things, but with for bad uses. So medicals or money, even gold, but for bad use.
For bad use. So let's go back. This is very interesting. So maybe we take that turba,
Mm-hmm.
and they then heat it on a special way.
Yes.
This heating is very important.
Yes.
That one also
It must be
aspect.
very soft and.
Maybe we should locate the secrets. The first secret is the element, what it is. The second secret is how to heat it.
Yes.
So we know fire has to heat it.
Mhm.
But is fire has to be produced in a special way with wood or with
It has to
charcoal
be very,
or-
very soft. They say like dung,
Like a dung.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Horrible dung.
from cow dung?
Yes. So it takes a lot of time, of course, because it can take weeks before
Uh-huh.
the distillation comes to the end.
Okay, so the cow dung, let's say, they
Mhm.
heat it,
Mhm.
and they put fire in it,
Yes.
and then they put the turba on it,
Yes.
and then it starts for weeks.
So slowly.
Slowly.
And then they isolate the four elements, and then they begin again to distillate.
Let's see how they isolate the four elements. Again, we have to hear it very carefully.
It's very important.
This is very interesting. So how to isolate? They have to put a container above it to
You
contain it.
You have an ambix
Yeah.
with a sort of container, and at the top of it you have a back.
Ah, okay. The usual what the
Yeah.
chemists
Yes,
they
yes,
use.
yes.
Okay.
And so if you have
A
vapor,
neck like that.
neck, yes, the vapor is just pouring down along the neck, and it becomes a liquid.
It becomes a liquid. So when you put this and then it goes on, they keep softly doing it,
Yes.
and then the vapor comes out, and
And
that
then
is collected as a liquid.
A white liquid.
White liquid.
Totally white. And then they collect it.
White,
So the black,
meaning
it's transformed
transparent.
on white.
No white. They say white.
Because for the beginning it was black.
No,
Black
but
the
that's-
whole,
eh,
the first
Yeah.
matter was black, and then the element air
Mm.
is white, totally
Mhm.
white.
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 Ah, so it's a white vapor, not a
Yes.
transparent vapor.
No, the liquid becomes white.
The liquid becomes white. Interesting. And did you see this happen?
No,
Not
no,
this-
because it is a real secret.
Ah.
I never had enough courage to to work
To do it,
weeks
to
and
work
weeks
on it.
and
So
months
you've
and
been
Yeah.
collecting all the information.
yes.
Now is the time to do it.
Well, but well, it's a whole work, and it's also an inner work, a spiritual
Inner work.
because they say you cannot find unless you are purified within you.
And this knowledge, it was in the time of Egyptian.
Yes, but the Egyptians used a lot of very complicated symbols, so it's
Mm.
very difficult to know what they actually were doing. But the Arabs, they took Egyptian alchemy and they put it on a very clear way,
Uh-huh.
vocabulary.
So
and they-
what
they
is the
said-
what is the new in the Arab knowledge of this alchemy?
They say this, the things like they are. You take this instrument and you put this matter.
Ah,
in
they
it.
explain
Yes,
systematically.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
So there is more details in Arab
precise
texts.
details and distillation in 1 day or 2 days or
Ah,
3 days.
how long to do
Yes.
it. And you have translated these
That's-
texts?
I have edited this Arabic text and translated into French.
Ah, this is great. This book that you have, Alchimie et Mystique
Mystique en terre
en
d'islam.
terre d'islam.
That is a synthesis. But
It's
I
a
have another book, 10 traités d'alchimie, where I translated
The
10
actual, you do this, you do
Yes,
this, you do
yes.
this. This is great.
And you have published, I think, in Arabic also the
Also.
original text
texts. Yes, yes,
of Jabir bin Hayyan.
yes, and the description of the material work.
So let's go back. It's very interesting all this, because now this element goes up, and then the air, and that gets collected. It becomes a white liquid,
Yes.
and the second element will be the hot.
Would
Red.
be water. Would be water.
This goes into water. It's not yet considered
No,
the water
You
element.
have 4 elements: air, water, fire, and earth.
Mhm.
And so in the distillation, you
I
distill.
tell you one secret. They didn't say the alchemist. The fifth element,
Ah.
space, is empty space.
Mm.
And that's a very interesting thing, actually, which might lead us to something very important, because Marshi has brought to light that the field of transformation is in the gap,
Mhm.
that matter dissolves into nothingness,
Mhm.
and then from nothingness comes matter again. So anything transforming means annihilation and recreation, annihilation and recreation. So all the field of change is nothing but going back to the pure being and coming out of it, coming
Mhm.
back and coming out. So actually in the Vedic tradition there's 5 elements.
Mhm.
All these 4, which are the physical elements, and the 5th element, which is the pure Akasha, it's called. And Akasha is a field of non-real thing, physical. It's space, it's empty space. It's Akasha.
You find it in the Arabic alchemic also. It's a spirit, because the spirit is not
Ah.
moist.
Ah.
It's not
So they tell him spirit.
spirit.
So that's the
Ruh.
one,
It is
Ah.
the ruh.
Ruh.
Ah, also in Kabbalah, ruh,
yes.
the same.
Spirit is
expression.
present everywhere. It's
Uh-huh.
not,
But they
And that
say
is an important, that is where they say actually if you heat it too much then the spirit goes.
yes.
So this is we can see the fifth element if we want to look at it as an element. Therefore the first thing they care about is really that spirit,
Mhm.
because anything you do, that spirit is ready to run away.
Of course.
it's very important your this point that you say.
Yes, this field of transformation.
They can let us to discover something about what they said and what they haven't said about this secret.
Yes, this Maharishi brought to light this very important fields of reality. And for example, the whole Veda has been seen as a sound and words and meaning. And it was Maharishi who said, but you forgot the silence. In everything you speak, there is a word. What does it mean there is a word? It means that you have ended somewhere and now start a new word. Otherwise it will be one word, the whole thing. Or one syllable. What makes you say there are two syllables is the fact that there is silence. There is a punctuation. Now is another reality. And it is in that silence that resides all the transformation, intelligence and power, which is called Brahmana. Maharishi calls Brahmana. The change of something into something, and from something into something, like that. And I remember one little anecdote, very nice, that Maharishi was told that it said in the Bible that at the beginning was the Word, and then the Word became matter, became physical reality. Because people were very happy to tell Maharishi this, because Maharishi has been saying it is sound and vibration that becomes physical matter. So they asked Maharishi, what do you think about this? And he said, yes, it's true, but at the beginning was silence. Then silence, from silence came the word, and from the word came matter. So silence is the very important thing which has been forgotten. Why it's forgotten? Because naturally silence you don't talk about, it's silence. So this is really very interesting discussion where we see the physical transformation paralleling the reality of the consciousness level of transformation. And that brings us back to the reality of what you said, that also the experimenter himself has to have something.
Yes.
So it's not just the doing, but there is something from the person who is doing it, the alchemist himself. Would you like to tell more about this? What is needed for that?
They say that you can't really understand alchemy unless you are also purified, like the matter you are purifying. So
Very
there
important.
is a double process happening in alchemy, and the real result at the end is not so producing philosophical stone and gold, but also discovering the secret in your own self.
Beautiful.
Maybe the same of the teaching of Maharishi. We must firstly purify ourselves, to purify others, or to purify all the society.
Yes.
When we purified ourselves, everything by others' steps can be purified. It's joy. We can join.
There is an anecdote they tell about a Sufi called Sahel Tustari, who tried to make alchemy when he was young, and at his death, when he was dead, the pupils came, the disciples, and he was living in an old hut, very poor, and he had many debts, and so they wanted to clean the hut, and within the hut they found big bottles, and the big bottles were full of gold. But he hadn't any use of gold.
No interest, no time to think about it. So now we make it a practical reality. We make the gold and use it for the world to remove poverty. This is very good. And so let's go back to our real, very fascinating procedure, because now I already feel the gold coming up. So we started with the turba, and we put it on a cow dung, and then softly heat it, knowing that, of course, the one who's doing it has to be in a pure form. Pure form also will mean that his surrounding is also properly in accordance with
Yes.
natural law. Was there anything known, for example, that maybe the entrance of the house should be to the east or anything? Any description of how the house should be oriented?
The house would be oriented to, in harmony with the stars, with the planets. With the
They
planets.
say that.
Yes, yes, and especially the moon and the sun.
Ah,
Yeah.
so it's actually mentioned. This is
Yes,
actually mentioned.
Yes, and they had to begin with the work. Well, it was better to begin in when the sun was in Aries, so at the beginning in spring. At the
Ah,
beginning of the spring.
we're
because
missing it. We have only this is the last day maybe today,
Yeah.
but we're beginning. It's perfect because it's a perfect time. Now sun is in Aries
Yes.
from the. This is perfect. And yes.
Yes, because alchemy was an oral tradition,
Uh-huh.
well, and they wrote books and many treatises, but well, mainly there was a master and a disciple.
That's beautiful. It's very beautiful
Yeah.
because
Mm.
this is also in accordance with the Vedic literature. Maharishi is now we are all sitting in this house,
Mhm.
and this is a Stapatya Veda house,
Mhm.
which main purpose of the house is that it should be oriented to the east,
To the east, I see.
entrance to the
Mhm.
sun, the rising sun. So as you say, the sun is in Aries. Aries is where the sun is exalted, the first house in Jyotish. Jyotish is the science of planets
Mhm.
in the ancient Vedic knowledge. And so the sun moving in the different constellations has different strengths and different powers.
Mhm.
And when he goes into Aries, which is the number one,
Mhm.
then he gets exalted. So it's then therefore in the alchemy there are more than just the physical transformation. There is the spiritual preparedness of the person, as you beautifully mentioned. There is also the orientation of his house,
Also,
and there is also the timing when he starts
Also,
his,
mhm.
so the relationship with the planets in
Mhm.
terms of orientation towards the proper direction, and also in terms of the timing where the sun is in relation to the moon,
and also with the 5 planets as well.
with the 5 planets as well. This is very interesting. So that's why Maharishi told us to come right now. He said, you remember you were proposing to
Yeah.
come in June,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
and then Maharishi spontaneously he said, no,
No,
come.
no.
And I said, maybe next week, this week. No, right now, he said. So that
Ah.
is before the
Yeah, we are
sun
in the
goes
same,
out of
yeah.
Aries. This is very nice. So it's very beautiful. And then I want to still understand this principle of heating, and then the vapor comes.
Yes.
That's the gas.
Mhm.
It also becomes white liquid,
Yes.
but that's not considered as the water yet, or
Well,
that is the liquid.
You have 3 matters being distillated, so air, water, and fire.
Oh.
What they call air, water, and air.
Yeah.
But both 3 are liquid.
3 are liquid, become liquid when they
Yes.
come out.
Mm.
Yes, just Earth stays just
Earth, I see.
at the bottom of the umbics. But and afterwards they take each one of the 4 elements separately, and they make distillations to purify so air and
Mhm.
and fire.
So when the gas comes out, it becomes liquid.
Yes.
That's we say this is the gas.
Yes.
Now after a little while will come something which we say that is the water side.
Yes.
And then it becomes hot and red and all that, and something also comes out and moves and also is collected together in the same pot, in the same.
No, separately.
Separately.
They separate the 4.
So first you have the
Yes.
you have
yes.
4 vessels.
Yes, 4 vessels, and they purify it with distillation, because they say when a matter becomes a gas, there is more spirit in it. So
Ah.
the inner structure.
Space, more space.
Yes, the inner structure of the element becomes more spiritual.
The akasha value
Mhm.
is more lively.
Yes, and so it becomes more strong, more full of energy, and they purify it and they energize it weeks and weeks, and afterwards they put fire and air together, and
First fire and
yes,
air.
and then water and earth.
Uh-huh.
So it makes two elements, and then they join it. They call that a wedding.
The
and
final thing.
Yes, and the final matter, the philosophical stone, it cannot be disjoined. It is a total
One.
One.
matter, totally one, because well, the elements are totally purified. So there's nothing. Well, there is total balance. No,
Uh-huh.
because the evolution happens when the substances are unbalanced, but no, they are all
Uh-huh.
totally purified.
So this distillation, do you know how long it takes for the air to come, and then the water, and then the heat? How long?
Well,
This is mentioned in the book.
yes, the book mentions 7 or 10 ways, because if you are just a beginner, it takes months. But if you are really a true alchemist, you can do it, the whole operation, in 7 days.
7 days. Uh-huh. So a true alchemist, what difference does it make? It's his own development,
Yes, and his
how he
perception.
approaches the matter,
Yes, yes.
how he deals with it, how
And
he feels
he
it.
can read in the matter what is happening.
Ah.
He can see that is enough. Yeah, no, you have to put a bit.
His consciousness, his
his
spirit.
consciousness, yes, and he reads in the matter like we read in book. In a book.
This is interesting.
Everything becomes so transparent.
And they describe what they read, like is it little hotter, little redder,
Yes,
little
you
whiter,
have colors.
colors.
And,
This is also described.
yes.
You have all
yes.
written this in your books?
Yes, but it is symbolic. It's not very clear. If you do not have the matter, if you are not in the laboratory, it's difficult to know what they mean by this. They say, and suddenly you see a little baby coming at
They have their
surface.
own language,
Yes, they have.
and how we can know or understand this language. There is some way to.
Well, but you have to read and to read many treatises.
You have to be alchemist to
Yes,
to understand what they say.
I worked years and years on those texts, and some expressions I still do not understand.
And this language is different from one author to another author, or they have the same language?
They have, well, both, but they have main concepts in common.
So you have found, this is a very good point, Dr. Bishara and Dr. Saliba, and that is that there is a continuity, there is an agreement.
Yes.
So when you look at those who have done it in Iran or in Egypt or in Arab world
And in Europe.
or in Europe, they all have the same
Yes,
system,
yes.
and that is the system.
Yes.
Same language?
Well, more or less. In Europe, they have symbols taken from Christian symbols, and the dead, resurrection, and so on. And of course, in Islam, they have other symbols.
You see, there is some continuity between Islam alchemists and Christian alchemists in the Western, or
Yes,
there is some
yes,
influences?
Yes, the books I translated into French were also translated into Latin in the Middle Ages.
Uh-huh.
So they are the same references. Yeah.
So the origin, then there is a unity then in the system and the approach,
Yes.
and so all the schools that have been alchemists have had that unity in them. So that must be something also very revealing in terms of its truthness. Because if you see something so many ways and this, then you say it's lost, you don't know what to do. But if they all have held to that same principles and same ways, this means this must have given them some reinforcement,
Sure.
which means they must have found something. Do you feel they have found the philosophical stone?
I don't know, really. Honestly, I don't know, but I'm sure that many of them have found a spiritual truth.
Uh-huh.
That is true, because they are dealing with their experience with such a strength in their books that I'm sure they are at least they found that. What happens really in the very structure of the matter when they say that they are making gold, I do not know, but
Actually, this one thing I've heard that when they, even in Lebanon, when they opened some excavated some cities in Byblos,
Yeah.
they found these big jars full of
Yeah.
white things that evaporate. You've heard about this? You have heard about it?
Yeah.
Do you know anything more? Because they said these were alchemists, and that it seems they reached some material that actually is so light and white that it just flies like vapor in the air. What is, do you know anything about vapor like this going up? Not vapor actually. They say it just goes, rises up. Is there something like this?
Yes, yes. They well, they had special vessels from which no gas could pour out, and they call it the seal of Hermes.
The seal of Hermes.
Therefore,
Hermes, where
Hermes,
does
yeah, Hermes al-Haramisa,
Yes. Who was
Hermetic.
for the Muslims? He was a prophet,
Yeah.
and therefore we say of a vessel he is hermetically closed.
This
Yeah.
where from it comes from.
Yes, because it's closed and nothing can pour out of it. No gas and no.
وفي الثقافة المؤتمر الدولي لتكريم العلامة
وقتا سمح للراهبات بلبس الثوب خارج الدير، وبشباط 1932 صارت الجمعية تدير حالها مستقلة عن راهبات النوصلسونيين اللي ساعدوا لمدة 2 بتنشئة هالرهبنة الجديدة. وعين أبونا يعقوب الأم ماريز غايب الرئيسة الأولى، وأصبحت إيده اليمين بإدارة شؤون الرهبنة الروحية والحياتية يلي ما كانت سهلة أبداً، وخاصة ببداية تأسيسها. تأسيس رهبنة في له متطلبات، قوانين، رسوم، نظام، والأهم هو الاعتراف فيها من قبل الكنيسة. منشان هيك ما كان على الجمعية إلا انتظار الموافقة على مرسوم التثبيت. وبعد فترة وصل الجواب للمدبر الرسولي ببيروت الأب فيكتور بريفو بيقول المسألة متعلقة بك. وقتها صدر قرار التثبيت من حق أبرشة ب1 آب 1949، وكانت الفرحة الكبيرة. بس الفرحة الأكبر هي
We have many texts about Hermes al-Haramisa, which was also revered as a great sage and a great prophet.
Living before Noah.
Before Noah, even so very ancient.
Yes.
So this is very fascinating. I want to come back a little to the symbols. When you say that in Egypt they had these symbols, symbols, you mean like when you said they read the what is going on in the preparation as we read a book. This is where they say, well, you see this and it's a symbol, you see this and it's a symbol, or the way they describe.
The way they describe, they say, for instance, you take the white dragon and you put him on the volcano. Well, white dragon, it might be
Mercury.
Mercury. It might be, but it's not sure. You know, all the names of the substances are totally images.
Images. You take the white dragon, put it on the volcano.
Yes,
and the Arabs, when you look at the Arabs, you say the Arabs have actually translated that.
Yes, and
they removed the symbols.
Exactly.
So therefore, if we look at the Arab texts and we look at the Egyptian texts, we could probably say yes. Well, the Arabs say, because you say there is a unity in the system. So now we can translate the Egyptian. Because if because if the Arab said, well, you take mercury and put it in the hot cow dung, then you mean that, okay, what they meant is you take the white dragon, put it on the volcano.
Exactly.
So white dung means volcano. It might be. And this work has not been done, this comparative work.
No, because the specialist has to, they must have one specialist knowing Greek, Coptic.
There is some question, Professor Lori. What it was the link between the Egyptian alchemist and the Arab Muslim alchemist? There is no in time. Maybe the Greeks or.
Well, the link was the Christian alchemist, the Egyptian Coptic alchemist. When the Arabs invaded Egypt,
this text was translated from Egyptian language
Greek,
to Arabic.
From Greek and Coptic into Arabic. So there were Arabic princes who asked Egyptian monks to translate actually translate the alchemic works into Arabic.
هما لا تنتهي.
We had very soon Arabic treatises, and Arabic alchemists working on those treatises.
Do you feel that maybe some of these secret symbols they've not yet been revealed completely
No,
from
no,
Egypt?
No, it's
But
so
still, the European alchemists and the Greek alchemists, whoever, not the Greek, there were not so many Greek alchemists probably.
well,
They didn't
They were Egyptian writing in Greek.
in Greek,
Yeah.
yes. But then, if they were so convinced, because in the Middle Ages, at some time, whatever we call Middle Ages, a long period, in Europe they were really very strong alchemist movements, and as you say, they must have produced something, either in themselves or outside, whatever. So they must have had the technique available somehow. Therefore, the symbols must have been already actually understood in some way.
Probably. But I think it must be, well, the alchemists must be true searchers, because I remember in the University of Liège in Belgium, they tried to make alchemical experience, and they took the books and they tried to make it really like it was described in the books. But they didn't produce anything, because there must be something more. And
in Western alchemists, we know that the problem of immortality was so important. If we take the case of Le Comte de Saint-Germain, we say that he was immortal, and he was appeared many years and many centuries. So this point was evoked in Arab text.
No, curiously not. Just the Westerners say that with philosophical stone, if you poured it into water and you melted it in water, then you could live centuries.
Because alchemy in the Western world, it was something like not only the research of gold, but research of immortality.
Also.
So that it transforms the physiology in such a way.
The Comte de Saint-Germain, we said that he was an immortal, and he was appeared in many epochs and in many times, especially before the French Revolution, etc. There is many. Le Comte de Saint-Germain is a very strange
phenomenon.
Phenomenon. Maybe something like Al-Mahdi in the Shiite face. He was not. He was immortal, not dead, and he can appear in many times. Maybe when we have a big event or something.
So in the Shia, they still think he's living somewhere.
Yeah.
In this planet Earth.
Maybe.
Was he an alchemist?
Yeah, he was.
Mahdi, was it related in the Shiite?
No, I speak about Le Comte de Saint-Germain.
Yes.
But the Mahdi, is he an alchemist?
No, Mahdi, he was. He disappeared when he was a baby, so we don't.
We don't know what he has done.
But it's strange that the grandfather of Al-Mahdi, Ja'far al-Sadiq, we said, tradition said that he was the first alchemist or the inspiring. He was the teacher, they say, of Jabir bin Hayyan, but it's not.
So his grandson must be also in the same tradition. We cannot say.
Nothing scientific here. But all this tradition say that all this knowledge come from him. It's not something very.
Yes, it's very interesting. So there is a god of alchemy that is somewhere in the heavens. There is a prophets of alchemy. There is a whole tradition that is connected to what we call a devata quality. We can say the angels. You mentioned the angels in a previous discussion. Yes. We can go back to this value also, because we have seen that the process is requiring this distillation and then putting together the element of fire and water and the element of air and earth. And how they are put together, do we know? Just mixing.
Yes, and well,
it's also another secret.
Yes, no. It is described, but on a symbolical way, like a wedding. So we do not have.
They say like a wedding.
Yeah.
Like a wedding, which means there should be a ceremony, there should be
No,
something.
there is a male and a female element, and so they mix them
Yin and yang.
together, but it's not described how precisely.
How precisely? Can you tell us more about these symbols? Like you said, dragon put on a volcano, or it's just interesting to know what they read. When you say they read, did they ever describe what they read in the heating during the distillation? Like you said, one example. We can hear more if you have. Would be very interesting to know, because you say it's like a baby born.
Mhm.
If we hear this more, maybe we can imagine or understand what it could possibly mean. Do you have more of these things that they read in the, or there is like a time when you should stop and do something else? At that time comes when you see this, or when you see that, or when this happens?
Well, in the Arabic alchemy, they mainly describe colors. you know.
Colors.
Yes, red and white and black and green. So they say when you see this color, then you stop. And
Uh-huh.
but the symbols are very difficult to interpret. When I wrote my PhD, I took every word I met and tried to put out the meaning. But it was a total failure, and because I think when we say this is I don't know whether this is lead or this is copper, we mean a precise substance.
Uh-huh.
For the alchemist, you have no substances. Everything is evolving.
Uh-huh.
So when they say you take water, for instance, it doesn't mean it is a liquid. It means it is something that is evolving and will become water.
I see.
So, or if you take spirit, it doesn't mean it is gas, but it is something who is becoming spiritual afterwards.
I see.
And it is a way of thinking who is tremendously difficult for us.
Because we have fragmented, I think.
Exactly. We have
Yeah.
fixed
And
it.
they are
I
open.
forget this whole.
They are open.
They have a totally dynamic way of
Unified thinking.
Mm.
It looks like somebody who's have more unity consciousness.
Mhm.
That you look into this and see how it's going, where it's going, and you describe it some way on its
Mhm.
path. But
Exactly.
we have, in this modern objective world, everything is Newtonian.
Mhm.
I forget the wholeness.
We
unity
forget
of-
the unity. We see things in a classical term rather than in a quantum mechanical term. Maybe they had that quantum mechanical vision,
Mhm.
which means you are familiar with this quantum mechanical field of modern physics, like the superconductors and the superfluids
Mhm.
that can move up a thing, or they have no resistance.
Mhm.
They are really produced
Maybe.
at low temperatures. They produce this, and now they are saying they can even think to produce these superfluids and super things even on higher temperatures, because if you choose the proper metal. So it's really a field which has been probably poorly understood and poorly evaluated based on this modern fragmentation of life into everything is disconnected from everything else, everything is separate from everything else. There is the cause and effect of things is on a surface level, on a classical level, on a Newtonian level, whereas the true reality is quantum mechanical. If you go deeper into matter, things are everywhere. An electron has the potential of being here and here and here and here. It's the probability of being at all places at the same time. He has a probability to be here maybe more than there, but doesn't mean he is completely here. That is modern physics actually. Those physicists, they speak like this. And people who don't understand them, they think they're speaking something spiritual. But when you bring out this point, it reminds me of that non-local reality of life and non-segmented aspect of
I'm
things
sure there is something like that
in the alchemy. So they had a very deep vision of reality, which they even seen into the matter itself. The matter is also a living, continuing, spread substance or organism or reality, rather than a segmented thing. But for now, what is important for us now is how to really grab this and make it a reality of working reality. So your contribution is very, very profound, because actually you have done a huge work of taking this, at the beginning, totally incomprehensible, symbolic, esoteric things. You have seen what it is, at least from its face value, but then seen that the Arabs have done this, and then went to the Arab literature and shown that they have actually translated a lot of this into a systematic technology which uses things. Of course, there are some secrets still inside and things that are
there
hidden.
is many things to do. We was talking with Professor Lori yesterday. There is a lot of thousands of pages in manuscripts, which was not published yet. Professor Lori has published many books of Jabir bin Hayyan or all this tradition, but there is also what is published. It's less than 10% of all this knowledge, all these manuscripts.
And in Iran, in India, you have thousands of titles. We don't even know what the content of it.
Because they
are in private libraries, and nobody cares to publish.
We must have some scholars to. Many scholars must need a total life to read and discover and publish all this.
And those who practice here and there, like you mentioned an Iranian person, where he has this knowledge from? Like he has read the books of Arabs, or?
Yes, but he's a traditional alchemist.
From family?
Yes, he had a master, so it is a totally traditional.
Oral.
Yes.
That is
Oral.
Actually the best way,
Parents?
because
From his parents and
Verbal.
elders?
He had a master in alchemy, not his parents, but he had a master who taught him
And
directly.
oral tradition of
Yes,
knowledge.
Yes.
yes,
So he even didn't need it
to read anything. Actually, that would be probably the purest way,
I think so, yeah.
because those people have seen it happen over and over again. They've been an apprentice
Yeah.
under the master, and the master has shown what to do.
And how to feel and how to think and how to imagine and how. So
It's hard to believe that all this can be simply written. I mean, writing is very important.
Yeah,
it gives a
right.
guidance, but this line of tradition of
Yeah, you must have some oral teaching
Yes.
and oral tradition,
yes,
knowledge. Because it's joined with experience. If you read, you can maybe you
Yes.
cannot understand if you haven't experienced, and if you haven't this level of consciousness and of thinking. Because he mentioned that it's not only to do, but to have the spirit.
yes.
If you haven't the spirit, you cannot do. You cannot have the same result.
So the master works on his student like he works on his metals, probably. He transforms him, and then one day he can transform the metal.
and even when he is dead, it is curious that even after his death, the master is still appearing to his pupil and still helps him.
That's part
and-
of the tradition.
Yes.
So the mastership is immortal.
Well, and
It's beautiful.
anyway, yes,
It's
because,
fabulous.
because the master is living in the what they call barzakh, in the.
What is the
kind of
barzakh?
angelic-
Professor?
Angelical reality.
Yes, angelical reality.
Like a devata he becomes.
probably.
What is the barzakh that you mentioned here?
Well, it is a world of imaginal beings, but not imaginary. It's all the saints who lived and who, they are living in this world, and they are still in relation with living people.
And so they don't leave their students or their disciples
no,
when they
no.
go.
No. And so people may pray them and see them in their dreams, for instance.
So dreams is is part
Very
of the
important
way.
part, yes.
That's very
Very.
important. Now, another area which you mentioned in your writing, I looked briefly, but I will read very carefully now, all your books, is that the numbers, the symbols, the numbering systems, the language. Would you like to say
Yes.
something?
Yes, because Jabir, the main Arab alchemist, said, well, in one life it is impossible to understand all the laws of alchemy. It's really too complicated. but all the secrets of the laws of universe are in the balance, and especially in the balance of language. If you understand the harmony which lays behind the language, you can understand the being, and the word expressing a substance, gold or silver or a name, give you the very essence of this substance. And there is a whole philosophy of language, the language being not only the words, but also the numbers behind the words.
Means the structure of the language.
The structure, yes, the structure, the divine structure of the language.
Ah, this is
Divine
beautiful.
structure.
This is a great vision of reality they had, because Maharishi Ji in this age has explained the Veda in terms of sound and silence, but where the structure is becoming important more than the meaning even. So the meaning is some surface level which has its own value, but the true value is that all the laws of nature come from one field. In the physics they call it the unified field. If we can summarize quickly, we can say, well, if you take this chair, look, it's made out of wood. You take the wood, what it's made out of some molecules. You take those molecules, what they are made of atoms. Take the atom, what is it made of? Some elementary particles. You go into the particles, what they are made of, and then you reach vibration of energy. They call quanta, which is quantities of energy. Just the vibration of what? Of the fields. So they have the quantum, and the quantum mechanical fields, they had 4 fields before. The weak, strong force, the electromagnetic field, and the gravitational field of gravity that attracts things together. And then they have found that actually these are unified. And they gradually, and the Nobel Prize was given about 20 years ago to Weinberg and Salam for unifying the weak force and the electromagnetic field into what they call the grand unification. And then ultimately we have today a reality of one field only, which is called the unified field of all the laws of nature. It is described in physics as being a self-referral field, infinite field, unbounded field, pure field, absolute, non-changing field, yet all the laws of nature exist in that field, and from it everything comes. So Maharishi had explained this reality of the Veda even before the unified field was even talked about and discovered 50 years ago, from the Vedic knowledge of reality, that there is that one field which then vibrates. The vibrations of the fields is a sound value. Any vibration is like a sound. Sound is like a language. You can say the speech. Sound, any sound is like a language, because we can say sound. But these vibrations have a systematic way of expressing themselves. It's not haphazard. One vibration, and then they come into 2, into 3 values, and then the 3 into 8, and the 8 into 64, and the 64 into 192, and then like this. And Maharishi has shown how this progression exactly is the progression, perfect progression of the unified field into sound, and that actually these sounds are in the Veda. So the ancient Veda, Maharishi has shown, are actually nothing but the expression of the laws of nature into a form of sound. So when you say numbers, it means these actual structures of sound, and you say language, is also these actual structures of sound, and the way they are organized one with respect to the other, and how they evolve. Now they evolve in a very systematic way into 4 branches and then 40 branches, which we call the Vedic literature. And each branch has a function and a structure. Some branch, for example, is called Shiksha. It is the branch of expression. Kalpa is the field of transformation. Vyakaran is the field of expansion. Nirukta is the field of self-referral, going back to the self. And Maharishi has shown exactly how they make sense and how they emerge one from the other, and what is their structure and what is their function. Now, this has really been my work also for the past 10 years, that under Maharishi's guidance, when he has done all this beautiful explanation of natural law and has put it into a very profound scientific vision, he wanted it he wanted to show that actually this is also the basis of all the physical matter on the gross level. Since I'm a physiologist and neurologist, he gave me the task and guided me, of course, through all the steps of the discovery to see how this actual structure of the Veda resembles our human body, because our human body is cosmic, Maharshi says. It is the body that is able to experience God consciousness. It's the body, within the body, I mean not the physical structure that we have, is able to experience that holistic totality of unity consciousness. So it has that total structure of all the laws of nature within it. And this has been my work now for 10 years under Maharshi's guidance, where it was very clearly shown that all the Veda is in our body. The reason why you have 5 fingers is because the natural law is like that. The reason you have so many nerves coming out of the vertebral column is exactly the same number of suktas in the Rig Veda of Mandala. The reason the thalamus inside the brain has 16 exact divisions and structure is because Nyaya, which has the same function, is exactly like this. So many chapters, so many divisions, so many subdivisions. So the books of the Veda are actually materially present in our body. And so we go from that field of pure being into the field of vibration, which we can call sound or language. And that sound or language has a structure. And that structure expresses itself into the universe. So this is beautiful that Jabir bin Khayyam has said, and you beautifully pointed out, that if you know the language, if you know the sounds meaning, if you know the vibrations, you know it all. And in fact it is all within you. It is all you. So if you know yourself truly, you know everything. And then you can use this in a way that can transform anything into anything. But on the material level, there is almost a ceremony that has to be done, a practice. And that practice is that practice where you have to take something at the proper time, the proper orientation, as you say, and then a proper...
Many important details.
Yes, proper preparation inside you, and then go through this step where you see how nature works in this fluid reality, and then produce this gold that you don't know what to do with.
Not only the gold, but also immortality. Even
Yes,
if we can
exactly.
take alchemist, Western alchemist.
And use it to change the world, to make the world a better world. So it's very fascinating, Professor Lori, and I'm still interested in these symbols, if you can tell us some more about them. I'm coming back to that point. What things they saw? They saw colors, you said.
Yes.
And in your book you describe like what color comes at what time, after how long?
Yes.
So it is clear there.
And well, they speak also about seasons.
Seasons.
For seasons. Well.
But colors in itself, they are symbols, or when he said red or he said other black, he mean this
real
color,
color,
or
yes.
is a symbol for other things?
No, the real color means that you are at that
Stage
of the experience.
of the experiment.
But at one moment they say, so there is a fish, they call it a fish, coming from the liquid, is something...
A fish coming from the
well,
liquid.
a fish.
Yes,
What is the last
whatever
color?
they say, it's very interesting.
The last color.
I want to hear about this fish.
The fish is
The last color.
the philosophical stone.
Is the
Ah.
film.
Yes. And it is red, very vivid red, like aqiq, and philosophical stone is not they say not so hard. It is like bougie,
Like a
Shama.
candle.
like
Like a
yes.
candle.
Well, it's and that you take it, this red stuff, and you pour it into lead.
And it has a form of a fish?
No, it's just a fish, because it was into liquid, and just
Out of this
appears.
liquid comes that
Yes.
reality.
And in Europe they call it the little baby.
Ah, that was a translation.
Yes, and this little baby is also called little Jesus.
Ah, oh,
will
because
gi-
it
give
was a
life.
Christian
Yes,
influence.
exactly.
Yes, yes, yes.
Which will give
But the
life.
fish was the original terms that was used.
Yes, in Arabic alchemy it is a fish.
And they must have taken this from Egyptian also. Fish, was it?
Probably, yes.
Why I'm saying fish? Because in the Vedic tradition, the first incarnation of wholeness, of pure being,
Mhm.
there are 10 incarnations of Vishnu. And the first one was fish.
Mhm. Ah, yes.
Fish, samaka.
Yeah.
In Christianity also, the
It's
first
also-
symbol of Christianity, it was the fish.
The fish
Uh-huh,
before the
that, yeah,
cross.
he
yes.
broke the...
No, it was the symbol of Christianity before also the cross.
before the cross?
Fish, yeah. In Roman epoch, the Christian have the fish as their own symbol.
And then they made it the cross.
Yeah.
The cross came later.
Yes.
There were 2 fish or 1 fish?
One fish.
One fish.
One or two, yes. One or
Sometimes
two,
two.
yes. Sometimes two.
Because like in the constellations, the
Oh,
fish...
yes. No, that was the fish was a symbol of Christ experience in the other
It's
death.
a common symbol between Hinduism and Christianity, I think, fish. It's very important.
Uh-huh.
This time we have forgot fish in Christianity as a symbol, but it's here. in all-
They concentrated on suffering and they wanted the cross and the suffering.
Yes.
I think they got a little sideways. While the reality was the wholeness, creation of a fish
Mm.
from the...
And in the text I translated, the alchemical text, they said you take the fish. Why a fish? Well, that is a secret you will understand.
That's how they say.
Yes.
And they call it wire fish, and that's a secret
Yes.
you will understand.
They call it a precise name of a fish.
Some special fish?
Yes. Yes.
Some one kind of fish, like salmon or
It's
something?
a fish called the shabut, and you find it in the Euphrates in Iraq.
Shabut.
Shabut, I
Did-
know.
You never tried to find it? What?
What is a special
Not salmon
feature
or...
of the fish? I don't know. Maybe.
Shabut, but now if you go to there, it says, I want shabut, they can show you this shabut.
Same name. This name?
Well, I never went in Iraq, but in the dictionary I couldn't get any. Any
But
detail.
locally there in Iraq, there is some
Could-
fish called shabut.
Maybe.
You know,
but
there is a
Yeah, there
thousands
is.
of kind of
There
fish,
is.
so maybe
there is, but I never saw it.
No, never saw it.
Yes.
But if we call now some Iraqi and ask him,
Yes.
you have shabut, he will say yes.
Well, I think so.
Yes?
He ought to do because.
It's common there.
Yes, yes.
So very good. There are so many pieces
Yeah.
that to be put together in
yeah,
this
yeah.
in this
And
puzzle.
all
but-
these civilizations and cultures about symbols, fish, etc. There is something common of all these symbols and of
Yeah, that is a strong part also. And in the numbering system, does it relate to like how many hours you do something, or how many days, or how many full moons?
And how the proportion of elements, how many fire, how many water, how many earth.
This
yes.
way.
And the theory of Jaber is curious. That I couldn't find any real good solution. He says the real proportion, the divine proportion, is 1, 3, 5, 8, making 17. And if you understand this proportion, you can understand everything in alchemy.
1, 3, 5,
8,
8,
making 17.
making 17. You add them together.
Yes, yes. So you have to make a proportion of, for instance, 1 fire, 3 water, and
That's an example. But you
Yes.
could be the other way around.
yes, yes.
He didn't say which is what.
He does, but in several ways.
Several ways.
And if you want to understand the relation between the word and the concrete reality, then you must use this proportion. It is the proportion which is the harmony of the human language, he says.
And that was from Jabir, one.
Yes, and he says it was, he took it from the old,
He said he took it from the old, from the Egypt.
from Apollonius, an old Greek
The Greek.
philosopher. And well, I thought, and other people thought a lot about this 17.
You didn't find a solution.
Well, correspondences, but not a real solution.
So there is many secrets in.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And who in the world today you can say is the most serious line of descent of alchemists? Do you know some people that come from a direct tradition?
Well, I knew this man in Isfahan, but I don't know if he is still living. And then I was told that in India, among Muslim Indians, there were many people.
That are still in the pure tradition?
Yes, yes. But, well, India is a very large country.
Yes.
Difficult to find
It's
them.
not like Isfahan.
Who was the last most author in Islamic alchemist tradition? As an author.
Well, I studied an Iranian who is called Muzaffar Ali Shah, but he lived at the beginning of the 19th century. 18th century.
Have you never been yourself interested to be an apprentice alchemist, like go under the master and try something?
That's an involvement for a whole life.
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment for a
Like
whole
you
life.
join a monastery or
Exactly.
something. Yeah.
Exactly.
And what is the relationship between this tradition of alchemist and Sufi? Because we know that Jabir was the first known as Sufi. There was some link between Sufism and
Well, yes,
alchemist.
Alchemy is a spiritual commitment, so you can be mystical with alchemy or without alchemy, but it is anyway the transformation of the individual, of the soul, into.
Did they have any special way of living, like were they having children and
Yes.
like that tradition?
Yes, yes.
And they raise their children under the same tradition, or the child can go do something else. It doesn't matter. How they choose their disciples?
Well, the disciple
Go to the master and
to
ask.
Yes, exactly, exactly. But I heard many stories of the masters appearing in a dream to the disciple.
And saying you should come.
Yes. And then afterwards, the disciple recognizes the master.
Oh, beautiful.
No, Sufism is the really the much richest tradition into Islam on the spiritual level. It's very
Definitely.
fantastic.
Sufism is very Vedantic, we say. Vedantic in the Vedic tradition means the unity value, unifying value, always. Because the Sufis are always exalting the unity with God, the oneness with the oneness of creation. That's always on their mind, that everything is Him.
Is one.
Yes, is one, everything is one. And that's, so that oneness feeling is also in alchemic tradition, or they don't go into that?
Well, the universe is one. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that unity.
Yes, yes.
And everything moves into everything else, ultimately on the metal level reaching gold,
Yes.
and on the consciousness level
Well,
They-
gold is one metal. Gold cannot be divided. It cannot be, and on this way, the perfect man is also perfectly spiritual and material. He cannot be split again. It's one. And well, it's the principle of the whole Islamic spirituality. Only God truly exists.
Yeah.
The other being are just appearances of God.
Something like a Vedantic idea.
Do you like to add something, Dr. Saliba, or comments on this discussion?
I was interesting about this relationship between alchemistic and Sufism, and maybe in the beginning, Jabir bin Hayyan, we said tell about him it was a Sufi, or the first who said about him Sufi. So I am not specialized in alchemist, but I think that this progression, this evolution of this knowledge and culture of alchemists, it was with this also evolution of Sufism thought, and in the golden age of Islam, we have also both of them most evoluted. We think there is some link between the spiritual Sufism culture and alchemist thought and tradition.
When we say the golden age of Islam, does it only mean in as a metaphor, or is it also they had working on gold? Alchemy, or it was just used as a metaphor, as a
Yes, it is a metaphor.
Metaphor.
Because they were alchemists, but they lived on a very discreet way.
But this is when they flourished most during
Yes,
that
oh,
time,
surely.
because there was knowledge and
There was knowledge, they
Wealth,
translated
and they were-
wealth, and they translated books from Greek, of Sanskrit, and well.
Sanskrit
and
also.
yes,
So what is the relation with Sanskrit? Sanskrit is the oldest language in the world.
They were very interested in Hindi.
Do you think in Vedic tradition there was alchemy?
Oh yes, of course, yes. But that is another alchemy, and I couldn't speak about it. But Indian alchemy is a very rich one, but the principles are different. So
And that is separate from the Egyptian.
yes, the concepts are different.
Even the techniques are different?
I think so. I just wrote several books in English, but I cannot really
And
speak about it.
when you say there is some Islamic alchemists in India at this time, so where they brought their knowledge from Islamic and Egyptian alchemists,
Well, actually from Islamic
or
alchemy,
Indian?
maybe also, but as if I understood, Indian alchemy is mainly based on healing, medical.
Medical.
healing.
That is the medical
Yes.
side.
Yes, medical
Yeah,
side.
Rasayana, something like that.
Much
Immortality.
more than the metals.
More than producing the actual metal. But
But with the same idea that you can transform everything in everything
Ah.
if you really have understood the very structure of the universe.
so it's a also complex kind of
Yes,
system.
yes.
But you don't know if it's similar techniques or different techniques.
I couldn't say.
You couldn't say.
And
because-
what it was the goal, to have gold or immortality in Indian?
Immortality is,
Well, immortality was
Yes,
the main
yes.
focus.
was probably gold as well.
Amrit
In
Deko.
the Chinese alchemy, the purpose was really the immortality. And
Because
Only.
the Chinese took
Yeah.
from the Indian.
no, they have another systems. The Chinese alchemy is really how to develop inner energy so to become immortal.
And it was some influences between Islamic alchemy and Indian and Chinese. There is some link, or all this
I think so.
evolution was closed and.
Maybe between Islamic and Indian alchemy, but Chinese alchemy is very, very different in the conception.
Chinese is
Yes,
different
yeah.
concept. But then this southern part from India, all through Iran and Iraq, and this whole there was a lot of exchange there.
Oh, yes, a lot. But Muslims were mainly interested in astronomy and astrology, Indian astronomy and astrology. They took a lot and they translated a lot. And also into magics, so those kind of things.
Magic is a field of transformation.
Also, and probably in to some extent to yoga.
Yeah. Very good. Anything you like to add more about the whole subject, or any particular technical thing we can? Because we're really fascinating to see the techniques. We were able to go into some aspects of how you heat it and this. And you say that these details of how many days and all that, you might not know by heart, maybe.
No, well, there are books.
Books on it, and you have translated them.
Yes, yes,
Let's say you want to do an alchemic experiment today.
yes.
Can you describe to us what you will do? You will take this. You imagine the most ideal conditions. We've described some of them.
Yes. So afterwards, well, I think we described everything.
Everything, but we didn't say how long you wait, what color comes
no,
first.
No, that depends of. There are 10 main ways, and it depends on every way.
Ah.
So, in, so it's each time it's a different color, so it's difficult to describe.
Ah. So some color comes, then you act this way. Another color comes, you act that way. Third color, you act this way.
Yes.
And that's where the master who knows immediately notices this and
Exactly.
takes it to that point.
And he knows which color permits the fastest
The
way.
fastest way. Whereas the student is waiting for his red color, maybe it comes and he doesn't see it.
Or if he's the fastest way is also the most dangerous, because if you make an error, so everything must be stopped.
You lose the whole thing. You have to
Yes.
start all over again.
Exactly.
Ah.
Because and if you take the most slowest way, then if you make a mistake, you can try again.
Okay. You have a second go.
Yes.
And these details we can find in your books.
Yes.
What color, what time, longer,
Exactly.
shorter way, and
Exactly.
all of that. These are the new books that you have produced.
I have a book, this book in French. And
That you gave me.
Yes. And I have some
It has
articles.
also this technique.
I have not a book, but I will give you also. And I have articles also on the subject. So.
Oh, nice. We will, Dr. Saliba will buy from you all the books. So, any more special comments you like?
Last point, that there is a prophecy of Jabir, the main Arabic alchemist. He said that at the end of the world, when the world will attain his achievement, the real secrets of alchemy will be given.
I see.
Everybody will understand alchemy, finally.
So we have,
to
maybe we have
contribute.
come now to one kind of ending of the world, but as everything always renewing, so you can say an ending, but also an ending is a renewal. Marshy beautifully explains, he says you can look at the seed and you say now the seed, you put it in the ground, and if you're focused just on the seed, you see the seed breaking. Say, oh, you can be very sad
Finished,
because
yes.
the seed is finished. But if you look at the tree, then that's the beginning. You can see at the end, at the beginning. So maybe we're coming to an end, but a new beginning. So thank you very much. It was a great pleasure. It was wonderful.
Thanks for you.
And then we will continue maybe afterwards our thoughts and discussions.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
In Arabic.
Jai Gurudev.
Hey, Gurudev.
So